welcome to another edition of the Sewing Guru. Now that we've completed our front panels in their entirety, we're now ready to start creating our back panels. Now the back panels are purely made of lining. Now this doesn't have to be. You can have the lining on the inside or you can have your outer inner fabric, but most waistcoats are created with lining. Now if I just show you a waistcoat which is a finished garment, as you can see we've got the back here which is a lined back. So you've got lining on the outside and you've got lining on the inside. And on the back we have this decorative belt, which of course is kept together with a clasp when it's on the body. So that would look like that, okay? So it's just a decorative belt really. Now I know that people actually use it to bring it into the body, to bring the waistcoat so that it looks fitted, but really it is just for decoration. Now the belt and clasp disappears into the darts, and that's how we are going to construct our decorative belt. So the things you need for this particular video is of course your lining panels. So you need your lining. Now this is still attached to the toiling piece, okay, I never took that off, but you need your lining pieces. Now we're only working with the outer, so in the next video I'm going to show you how to construct the inside, which will be the inside lining, but for this video we're going to be concentrating on the outer lining. And of course you need your small clasp. Now this is a classic waistcoat buckle, and of course you can get these from any haberdashery store, okay? They are actually quite easy to find. So you need one of those, and of course you need your lining as well, okay? Just your scrap lining, because what we're going to do is we're going to be creating the belt as well. So now that I've got all of my pieces laid out on my pattern table, we're now ready to get started. So I'm just going to recap of the things that we need for this video. Now of course we need our lining panels, but of course we only need two of them, because two are for the inside lining and two are for the outside lining, and we're using two because there's a left and a right. This here is the centre back seam. And we need our scrap fabric, okay, which is the excess lining that we've got, and from this we're going to be creating our belts. We've got our buckle here, okay, so I can actually take that off the pack like that. We need that, and that's it. And of course you need your scissors, okay, to cut the strap. But the first thing we need to do is create our decorative belt, which of course attaches to the buckle. Now the decorative belt is usually about 1.5 centimetres to 2 centimetres in width. So if you're creating a belt which is 1.5 centimetres in width, it's doubled over, so you've got your 1.5 centimetres and then another 1.5 centimetres, that's going to be 3 centimetres, and then of course you've got your seam allowance as well on either side, so the whole thing becomes 5 centimetres. So the width of our belt is going to be 5 centimetres, and the length is determined from our waistcoat back here, the back panel. Now the decorative belt disappears into the dart. So this is the dart. Of course the dart, when it's sewn, is folded in half. So start by measuring halfway in the dart and going to the edge here, which is 14 centimetres. So we know that our belt needs to be, when the belt's finished, it needs to be 14 centimetres at least in length. Now of course you need the belt long enough so that it can just thread through the buckle and it can just hang as a decorative belt. So really you need your belt a lot longer than from this distance to this distance. So let's just call them and do them at 22 centimetres each, because we can adjust them as we go. So I'm going to make mine 22 centimetres by 5 in width. So let's just start cutting those out. So we've got here our actual lining itself, and I'm going to cut along the selvage edge. Now it's a lot easier because this selvage edge is already a straightened edge. Now these parts here we don't need, so we're just going to cut those off because it's sort of getting in the way a little bit. So we don't need them. All we need is this width here. Now let's just measure that. Now that's, yes, we can get 5 centimetres out of that, so that's good. And the length, we're going to make it 22, so let's just cut this here. It's a lot easier to just have this small piece, and it's a lot more manageable to work with. So we're going to make it 22. Now I've got here the two panels together. Okay, now let's just cut along the selvage edge to get that straight piece of fabric. It's a lot easier just to cut along the selvage edge because you can use that as a guide and it just becomes very straight. So it's a great way of getting a real nice straight edge. Like that. Okay. So let's just, in fact I'm going to cut one at a time because it does move around a bit on the lining. Okay, because this is like slippery cloth and it really does move around a bit. So we're going to use this as 5 centimetres in width. Like that. And we're just going to make this a length of 22. Now again, it doesn't need to be exactly to the length because we can adjust this later on as we go. Now the belt, of course there's two parts to the belt. You've got a left and a right. One of the parts has the buckle attached to it, and then the other part is just hanging freely. So the part where the buckle is attached is going to be shorter than the actual part which is hanging freely, which is used to thread through the buckle. And then of course you can tighten it and make your waistcoat more fitted. Of course I will show you that as we go. So that there is the width of our belt. So we got it at 5 centimetres. Actually that's a little bit wide. Actually that's all 5.5. That's fine, we can just use that as 5.5. But you need to have the width so that it's going to fit in here. Now I'm just going to measure this part here for the buckle. That's 1.5 centimetres. Okay, so you need to make sure that your belt will fit through there. So I'm going to actually cut another sliver off here to make this 5, because otherwise it will become too wide. Now lining is a little bit tricky to cut with and work with because it's so slippery. But once we've cut it, we're going to be fine. There we go. Now that should measure now 5. Yeah, now that's fine. And we're going to have this as 22 centimetres. There's 22. In fact, well, we're just going to halve that and we can use these two here as our belt instead of cutting another piece out. So that's ideal, is that? That's great. Okay, so there is our decorative belt already cut out, so we don't need that. Now let's just bring our lining back over so we can have a look to see how this is going to work. So of course our belt will work from the dart. So as you can see, there's a lot of fabric here and it's going to easily fit on the back. Easily fit on there. So that's perfect. So, now that we've got our belts cut out, let's concentrate now on our back panels as well. Now we only need 2 of the back panels because we're only working with the outer lining rather than the inner lining. So let's just undo all of this. Take all the pins out. And what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the darts over from our pattern piece, our toile, onto our lining. So we only need the 2. So these 2 here we can discard because I'm going to show you that in the next video. That's going to be our lining. This is going to be now our outer. So what we're going to do is position our pattern back on to the lining again here, and we're going to transfer the dart into the lining. So let's just cut first of all our notches like this. So we've got our notches cut there, and we're now going to transfer with pins where our dart is going to be. So we're going to start off by putting a pin here in the top of the dart, and we've also got 2 points here as well for the darts. So we're basically doing this exactly the same as what we did for our outer panels a few videos ago. Okay, so we've now transferred that through. Turn that over, and again put some more pins in there, and here, like that. Okay, we can turn this over and we can now carefully move our toiling panel out of the way. Now I'm going to take these pins out, otherwise they might get lost, you see. So let's just take those out. We've got our pins transferred, so we're going to put some more pins through these pin points here to get the exact dart points. And the last one here. Okay, now we can just carefully move these like that. Now make sure that your pins stay, because that's the markings for your dart. Okay, you need those in there. Now of course remember, with lining, if you've got a decorative lining with say stripe on or something like that, make sure that you've got your inner and outer marked up where it needs to be, because of course when you stitch the dart in place, you want to be stitching on the outside of your lining, not the inside. Otherwise you're going to be putting the dart on the wrong side. So bear that in mind. Now for me, it doesn't matter because the lining is reversible lining, so it doesn't matter which side I actually create the darts on, as long as I've got a left and a right panel. So let's just turn this over like that, and we can already mark out where our dart is going to be. Now of course where the pin head is, that is where our dart is going to be. So So that's perfect, I'm happy with that. So we can take this pin out. We've got the other pin head here, so that's the end point of our dart. And then we've got our actual notch point. Put those together. Okay, so that there is now our markings done for our dart. Now, so this point here is the end point of our dart, that's the pin head. The second pin head is here, and of course we've got our notches. So of course when we create our dart, we're going from the notches in a straight line across here to this pin head here, and then we're going off and running off to this point here until the stitching comes off the actual fabric itself, creating our dart. Now I'm going to do that with this panel as well, and then we've got our darts positioned in place, ready to go. Now our belts, we need to now create our belts. So simply, to create these, fold this fabric in half. Okay, so now what you can do is just put some pins here. Okay, like that. Of course we're doing that for both of our belts. Of course we're doing that in the same way, so of course that gets folded as well. And remember, the correct side needs to be the inside of your lining if you're making a decorative lining, so make sure that the correct side's inside and the wrong side is on the outside. So the wrong side is what you can see. And what we're doing is we're simply stitching a centimetre in from here right along to this point here, and we're doing that on both decorative belts. Okay, so as you can see, I've now stitched both of my little belts, and the idea is to open up the seam to get this result here. So you just need to just open up the seam like that, okay, and press that part flat. So what that will do is when it's turned through, it's going to really have this neat strap. So let's just... Now it's the first part which is a little bit tricky, but once you've got it, that's it'll just press open like that. So we've got the second part here as well. I just like to manipulate this with my fingers here. Just make sure that this is open. Like that, because once you've got a start, there we go, the middle part's actually quite easy just to manipulate. So we've got a start there and we've got an end point. So as you can see, that will just fall open now, the seam on there. Make sure that you've got this seam in the middle. Try and press this so that the seam remains in the middle of your strap like that. Okay, it's a bit of a tricky thing this, but once you've got it, you'll be fine. Let's just use the clapper board to just press that properly now. Yeah, that's fine. Happy with that. Actually, that's just gone over slightly, so we can just repress that part. Like that. There we go. So that there now, that seam is right in the middle. So when you've done that, simply all we need to do now is just stitch across here on one side, because we need to keep the other side open when we pull the whole thing through. So we're stitching from here across there and from here across there, actually getting everything in, and make sure that the seam is actually stitched into place so that it's kept flat. Okay, so as you can see, I've now stitched across here on both of my straps. And now what we need to do is just turn these through. Now I've got here what's called a tube turner and a point former. And it's a great device as this. So what we do is we just thread our strap onto there, like that. And then in here, what we can do is just basically make sure that that's touching, and that will just then just pull through like this. It's a great bit of kit, is that, and it's so easy to just turn things through like this. So again, we're going to just put that in there just to make sure that these here bagged straight like that. As you can see now, that's looking really nice. Of course, we're going to do that on this one as well. Just quickly bag this through. There we go. Very, very easy to just bag things through with this. So just get into the corners again here, like that. And now what we're going to do is just press this now the correct way. Make sure that our seam is in the middle. Okay, so this is just a little bit tricky, but you'll get there and you'll be fine. So there we go. So that's our strap done. Now of course I'm going to be doing the same with this one, pressing that in place. Okay, and when I've pressed both of them in place, what we need to do now is attach the buckle to one part of the strap. Okay, it doesn't matter which one because they're both identical. Okay, but make sure that all of this is nicely pressed before you do that. Really just nicely press everything. Okay, make sure it's all nice and flat. Now let's just attach this strap to the buckle. Now your buckle has got a sliding part here which is on this half of the buckle, and we need to just position our strap through the other part. We're simply just bringing this through here, and we're going to stitch this across here in a kind of square formation just to lock that in place. So just make sure that that's nicely attached like that. And we're going to be stitching across here, across there, back, and then back to there. So you'll get like a kind of a square or a small oblong of stitching. Okay, so as you can see, I've now attached my buckle, and I've just decided to just do one strip of stitching like that, and that's going to hold that really nicely in place. And of course the other belt is just plain. Okay, but of course it is finished off and all stitched in. So the next part now is we're going to be attaching this belt into the darts of our lining. Now on a Gents, the waistcoat buckle part here goes on the right hand side. Okay, so the right hand panel. So of course when this is opened up and you've got a dart, this is going to be the right hand panel. So what we need to do is position the buckle part into the right hand panel and the other strap with no buckle into the left hand panel. And we're going to simply position that into the dart here. So the first thing we need to do is pin this in place. Now from the arm side, which is here, I'm going to measure 18 centimetres down to position the buckle in place. So let's just measure that. So we're going to measure from the arm side 18 centimetres down, and we're just going to put our buckle in there. Now let's just place this roughly. Now it goes right to the edge. Now, oh yes, before we do that, what we need to do is cut this now to size. So we need our buckle to basically go across just this side of the panel. Now the one without the buckle, strap without the buckle, is going to be longer. We're going to leave that as it is in length. But this part with the buckle on, we're going to cut that to the size of the width of this part here. So let's just cut that like so, okay? Now it's going to be slightly longer, okay? But that, I'm happy with that. So now that we've got that positioned, we can just put that right to the edge of our dart, okay? And make sure this is 18 centimetres for me down. So we're going to position that just a bit further down, like that. So there's my 18 centimetres, that's fine. And of course we need to make sure that the buckle is right up against this fabric edge here. Okay, so if I open that up, right across to the edge of the cloth where our dart is going to be. So now that I've got that positioned into place, I'm going to put a pin in there, so that's going to hold my buckle in place and it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to move anywhere at all. And I'm going to put another pin as well over here, just so that the whole thing is kept in place. So what happens, you see, is when we stitch the dart in place right along here, we're going to be stitching over the top of the buckle, and of course that's going to hold that strap in place. And then of course this will just carry on and finish off the dart. So we now need to do the other side as well. So let's just position this on the other side. Again, we're not cutting anything off this part of the strap. We're just going to just position the strap in here, right to the edge like that, but making sure again it's in the same position. So we're going to go 18 centimetres down from the arm side, like that. Let's just move that across a bit further, like that. It's 18 centimetres, there we go. Make sure that that is actually touching right to the edge there. And now we can just put some pins in there just to hold that in place. Like that. Now before we do that, I'm just going to just put the two panels together and make sure that they are actually in alignment. Let's have a look. Let's just position these and make sure that they are completely in alignment. Now you can feel that. Now this needs to just go up slightly because it's not in alignment with the buckle there on that side. Okay, so that now, yeah, now that is now in alignment. So again, I'm just going to put the pins here, again, just to hold that in place. Like so. So I'm actually happy with that. I know that both of my buckles now are completely in alignment. So what we're going to do is now stitch our darts in place. So we're going from the notch across to the first point of our dart here, Okay, so we're going across, of course, our decorative strap, and then out to finish off the dart. Now what I usually do when I go over the decorative strap is basically go over it, come back, and then go again with the stitching. So it gives this extra security with my stitching because I'm going over it a couple of times. So I'm going to go and put my straps and attach my darts in place right now. Okay, so as you can see, I've now put my darts in place, and they're exactly the same in length because I've put the two panels together. If we just turn these around, we can see now that our belts are caught into the darts like that. And that's exactly what we need. So what we need to do now is just press these darts in place. Now of course you want your dart to be facing this way so that it's not distorted in any way and it wants to lie as it wants to lie. So let's just press this so that that belt is now all nicely lying flat. Because of course the belt is wanting to go this way. So let's just press our dart this way. Just press this now nicely in place. Like that. Okay. And as you can see, that is going to really sit neatly in place. Just do this on this side, like that. So that's all really neat. And of course we're going to be doing the same on this side. So let's just press this the other way. Now you need to do the same. So this was pressed this way. So of course the other side we're going to be pressing it this way. Let's just move this out of the way. Of course my belt, we just need to just place that like that, and we're going to press this in the opposite direction. Just carefully press this dart in place. Okay, I'm going to just turn this over now, and as you can see, that's really neatly in place. Let's just turn this round. Like so. Make sure that the belt and everything is all neatly pressed in place. So that's it. That is now our back lining panels created with our belts in place. So we're now ready to go on to the next video where we're going to be constructing the inner lining of our waistcoat.